I'm Farhana and I'm an outreach manager for Inspirited Minds. And outside Inspirited Minds, I work as an assistant psychologist. As an outreach manager, I manage a team where we go into like Islamic societies. We go and run workshops for these societies as well as for imams or community leaders within the Muslim community. Um, and these workshops are about mental health, the symptoms of different mental health conditions, and how to support yourself and someone else going through that. I believe that mental health is important because it's in our everyday life. Every hour, minute, second involves our mental health. What we do, what we say, what we think of, how we feel. Yeah, it encapsulates everything. So I'd say so, definitely. I guess prior to the 4 years, I used to always have low self-esteem. I used to feel quite anxious and stressed as well when things didn't go to plan. So I'm gonna start talking about the events that have happened 4 years ago. Um, During that period, I went through two losses: my father and an ex-partner. So during that time, it was a shock to me, shock to my system, where I just didn't have the energy to go out, didn't have the energy to socialize. I was in bed most of the time. My mum would come into the room, complain about why it was messy, call me lazy in Bengali. And she wouldn't understand what was going on. She would tell me to get out of bed. Why am I always staying in bed? Um, and it was really, really hard. Like it was like a dark cloud covering um, your head, your body, your everything. It was just too hard to get out of it. So yeah, I was in bed most of the time. It affected my relationships. I didn't want to see anyone. I thought everyone hated me. I wasn't worthy of their attention or their love or affection. Um, I stopped going to work for quite some time until my colleagues were like, "Come, you need to get out of this pattern. Otherwise, if you stay in this pattern, you're going to continue living this way." So I ended up going to work. I didn't enjoy work. I hated it. It was like the worst time of my life. And I also went through vertigo during that period where I was intensely stressed. And vertigo's like when there's like an imbalance of the fluids in your ear. But for me, it was like I was really, really stressed. And what happened for me was the world would be spinning. No, it was as though my brain was spinning. Um, and I'd collapse quite a few times in a day. I wouldn't be able to sleep. So even when I lie down, my head would be spinning. So I wouldn't get any sleep either. So it affected my sleep. Um, I continuously got or experienced self-critical thoughts. So I hated myself a lot at the time. I felt a lot of guilt and shame for what's happened in the past. I couldn't forgive myself. I used to blame myself a lot of the time. Um, and then a few years on, after I started practicing, because I wasn't practicing before, um, I started to develop some paranoia. So things that are happening to Muslim women in the UK, the acid attacks, all of that stuff. It felt quite overwhelming to be in a society like that, being hyper vigilant of everyone around you. If they look at you in a way that doesn't fit in with how you want to be looked at, I'd always question it. So I'd always be questioning every time I go out. And I think that's kind of played a part in me isolating myself as well, because I don't want to go outside because it's dangerous. Not only for the purposes of people trying to harm me, but also because I've been hurt before, and I'm scared of trusting people. I'm scared of being in intimate relationships, not just only with friends, but with family too. So it's quite hard for me to trust people when I've experienced so many events where I've been hurt myself. So when I was in that relationship, it got quite abusive, and that contributed to me developing suicidal thoughts and self-harming behaviors. And at this point, my friends realized that I needed to get some counseling, and I did, um, which was helpful to a certain extent because I only got about four. Um, and then I felt a bit better. But then when the major breakup happened, that kind of increased my distressed feelings. And then my father passed away, so there was like two losses. Um, During the time when my father passed away, the first 6 months was really good because I started practicing Islam, was studying it more, was studying Arabic, and that was really like therapeutic for me, learning about the Deen. And then I fell back into the same patterns again, of low mood, self-critical thoughts, and then there'll be times where I'd self-harm to get rid of the overwhelming feelings. And then I moved to Milton Keynes, where I was living on my own, had no social supports, no social networks, and that reinforced my social isolation again, and time to think about plans, which I did, and I didn't want to think about plans to harm myself because it was against Islam, and I didn't want to kill myself. It got to a point I made plans, and it was getting scary because those plans were getting closer and closer to a point I was at the place where I was going to kill myself. There were two voices, one saying do it and the other one saying not. And there were a few hours during the night where I was thinking about this at this place. So one of the reasons why I didn't go ahead with it was because one of the voice that was saying don't do it was reminding me about my mum, who's a single mum of 10, and the struggles she had to go through. And for her to endure a hardship if her child dies is something that bothered me quite a bit during that time. So what my mom was the main reason. The second one was the deen. So if I did kill myself, I would be accountable for it. What would I say to Allah? Yeah, so it was that thought process. The third one was there were cars behind me, so they could see I was at this place, and I was all by myself. It was dark. It was in the countryside, and I didn't want someone to call the police to pick me up and take me to an inpatient ward because I work in I used to work in an inpatient ward, and I know that there's a process that happens, and I didn't want that stigma to be attached to me that I've been through this and been through the system. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I think it's quite therapeutic to go into an inpatient ward, and I've considered it quite a few times. So those were the three main reasons, and it took me about a few hours to talk myself out of it, and I ended up going to a local cab station where, oh yeah, my phone died as well, so I didn't have anyone to call. Local station, and I asked the cab station, can I use your phone to ask someone to come pick me up? And my brother did. I knew at this point that I needed to seek help, and that's why I went to IAPT, Improving Access to Psychological Therapies, where I was assessed, and they provided me with some therapeutic interventions. Because sometimes in this process you lose yourself, you don't know who you are, and it's important to have your friends and family around you. So that's one thing. Do things that you enjoy. So go back to things that you lost. So I stopped learning Arabic and I stopped doing sports. I used to be very sporty when I was younger, and I stopped doing that. So go back to that. If you can join a team, join a team. There is research that shows that the more physical activity you do, the better it is for your mental health. So I've started taking up running too. What I feel is missing in the Muslim community is the lack of genuine support. For example, the Sunnah way of helping someone out when they're going through difficulties, because mental health has such a big stigma in it, not just in the West, also in the East. I feel like a lot of people don't have the knowledge or the experience to kind of manage these difficult experiences, and show that compassion to their family members or to their neighbors or their friends or members of the community. So I feel like there needs to be more done to educate our brothers and sisters about how the Prophet ﷺ used to treat people who were going through mental health difficulties or physical health difficulties, because they go hand in hand. So education is very important, and I believe that through Inspirited Minds and working as an outreach worker to educate the rest would be beneficial for them. I'm Farhana, and my mental health journey has taught me to discover myself. The